My neighbor kept poisoning my garden, but I discovered why. My tomato plants are dead again. I've planted this garden every spring for 3 years. Every summer it dies. Not gradually, not from drought or bugs or disease. Overnight. One day thriving, the next destroyed. I lean closer to the soil and catch the smell. Something sharp and artificial like bleach mixed with fertilizer. My chest tightens. This isn't blight. This is deliberate. When I stand, I see her. Diane is on her porch, coffee mug in hand, watching me. She's always watching. I've lived here long enough to recognize the pattern. She's outside whenever I'm in the yard, her gaze fixed on the garden beds, like she's waiting for something to happen. I cross to the fence. Did you see anyone out here last night? She blinks, lifts the mug to her lips. No, not a soul. The answer comes too fast. No pause, no thought, just a reflex. I nod slowly. You're sure? I said no. Her voice is flat, but her eyes are still on the plants, and there's something in her expression I can't name. Not quite a smile, more like satisfaction. I go back inside and call the hardware store. By noon, I'm installing a motion sensor camera under the eaves, angling it toward the garden. My hands shake as I tighten the bracket. I tell myself I'm being paranoid, that maybe it's raccoons or runoff from the neighbor's sprinkler system. But I know, the first night, nothing. The second night, a stray cat trips the sensor at 11 p.m., and I watch the footage on my phone, feeling foolish. The third night, the alert pings at 2:07 a.m. I'm half asleep when it vibrates on the nightstand. I grab the phone and pull up the app, expecting the cat again. It's Diane. She's in my yard, dressed in a long bathrobe and slippers, moving slowly between the tomato beds. In her right hand is a spray bottle, the kind you use for cleaning windows. She stops at the first plant, lifts the bottle, and sprays the leaves in careful, methodical sweeps. Then she moves to the next one, and the next. I sit up in bed, my pulse hammering in my ears. I rewind the footage and watch it again. Her face is calm, focused, like she's performing a ritual. She doesn't look around, doesn't check for cameras or lights. She just sprays every plant in the row, then turns and walks back across the lawn toward her own house. By morning, I've watched it 5 times. I save the video to 3 different places and sit at the kitchen table, rehearsing what I'm going to say. My hands are still shaking. Part of me wants to march over there right now and shove the phone in her face. The other part wants to understand why. Why would someone do this? At 8 a.m., I see her come outside to water her hanging baskets. I grab my phone and walk across the yard. She sees me coming and sets the watering can down slowly, like she's been expecting this. I stop at the fence. I installed a camera. Her face doesn't change. I have footage of you in my yard, at 2 in the morning, spraying my plants. She looks at me for a long moment, then nods once. I know. You know? I saw the camera the day you put it up. My breath catches. Then why? Because you deserve it. The words hit like a slap. Her voice is steady, almost casual, like she's explaining why she returns my mail late. I stare at her. What are you talking about? You planted that garden on my land. Your land? Diane, this is my yard. I have a deed. She shakes her head. You don't understand. That space is mine. It's always been mine. I walk back into the house and pull the property survey from the filing cabinet. My hands are still shaking, but now it's anger, not fear. I bought this house 4 years ago. The boundaries were checked twice. Once by the title company, once by me when I had the fence quote done. I spread the document across the kitchen table and traced the lines with my finger. The property line runs a full 6 feet past the garden bed. There's no ambiguity, no overlap. That garden is mine. I fold the paper, grab my phone, and walk back outside. Diane is still on her porch, arms crossed, watching me approach like she's been waiting for round 2. I hold up the survey. This is the property line. Legal, certified. My garden is 6 feet inside my yard. She glances at it, then looks away. That's a lie. It's not. You can see it right here. I said it's a lie. Her voice cracks, sharp and loud enough that a jogger passing on the sidewalk turns to look. Diane doesn't seem to notice. She steps down from the porch and stands at the edge of her lawn, hands trembling at her sides. You don't know what you're talking about, she says. That space is mine. It's always been mine. I try to keep my voice steady. Diane, I don't want to fight with you, but you can't come into my yard and destroy my plants. If you think there's a boundary issue, we can get a surveyor. I don't need a surveyor. She turns and walks inside, slamming the door behind her. I stand there for a moment, survey still in my hand, trying to process what just happened. Then I go back inside and call the police. The officer who arrives an hour later is younger than I expected, maybe mid-20s, with a clean uniform and a calm, deliberate way of speaking. He listens while I explain everything. The dead plants, the footage, the confrontation this morning. I show him the video on my phone. He watches it twice, taking notes. And she admitted to doing this? Yes, she said I deserved it, that I planted on her land. He nods slowly. Do you have proof of the property line? I hand him the survey. He studies it for a long moment, then looks toward Diane's house. I'll go talk to her. I watch from the porch as he crosses the yard and knocks on her door. She opens it almost immediately, like she's been waiting. I can't hear what he says, but I see her shake her head, gesturing toward my yard. Her voice rises. The officer stays calm, speaking in low, measured tones. Then something shifts. Diane's face crumples. She presses a hand to her mouth, and her shoulders start to shake. The officer steps closer, still talking, and she sinks down onto the top step of her porch, sobbing. I feel a knot tighten in my stomach. This isn't the reaction I expected. The officer glances back at me, then crouches beside her, still speaking. After a few minutes, he stands and walks back toward me. Diane stays on the step, head in her hands. She's not going to bother you again, he says quietly. What did she say? He hesitates, glancing back toward her. She told me her daughter died 20 years ago. House fire. She was 7. I don't know what to say. The words just hang there. She believes her daughter was buried somewhere near this neighborhood. She says she was told back then that the ashes were scattered in what's now your backyard. She's been trying to protect the space. I stare at him. Protect it by killing my plants? I'm not defending it, I'm just telling you what she said. Did she have any proof? Records? Anything? He shakes his head. No, just a memory, and a lot of grief. I look past him toward Diane, still hunched on the step. For the first time since this started, I feel something other than anger. Not sympathy exactly. More like disorientation, like the ground beneath me just shifted. She needs to stay off your property, the officer continues. I made that clear. If she comes back, call us immediately. I nod. Okay. He hands me a case number on a slip of paper and walks back to his car. I watch him leave, then look toward Diane's porch. She's still sitting there, motionless. I go inside and close the door. For the rest of the day, I can't stop thinking about what he said. A daughter, a fire, 20 years. I try to imagine what that kind of loss does to a person, how it might warp over time into something unrecognizable. But I also think about the spray bottle, the deliberate way she moved through my yard, the calm satisfaction on her face when she watched my plants die. That evening, I pull up the property records online and search for anything about the house before I bought it. The previous owners lived here for 12 years. Before that, it was a rental. Before that, a family named Caldwell. I search for news articles about house fires in the area around the time Diane mentioned. There are 3. None of them match what she described. I sit back in my chair, staring at the screen. Either she's mistaken or she's lying. Or she's been living with a story for so long that she can't tell the difference anymore. I don't go outside for 2 days. I tell myself it's because I'm busy, work emails, a project deadline, things that need attention. But the truth is I can't stand the thought of stepping into my own backyard and seeing Diane on her porch, watching me like I'm the villain in a story I didn't write. On the 3rd morning, I'm making coffee when I hear voices outside. I move to the window and see 2 of my neighbors standing at the edge of my driveway looking toward the garden. One of them is Mrs. Patel from 3 houses down. The other is a guy I've waved to a few times but never spoken to. They're talking quietly, glancing toward Diane's house, then back at mine. Mrs. Patel shakes her head and says something I can't hear. The guy nods, hands in his pockets, and they both walk away. I feel my stomach drop. That afternoon, I check the neighborhood Facebook group. I don't post in it much, mostly just lurk for updates about trash pickup and block parties. But today, there's a thread near the top with over 60 comments. The subject line reads, "Does anyone know what's going on with the house on Maple?" I click it. The first post is from someone I don't recognize. They've written a vague summary of a dispute between me and Diane, mentioning property lines and a garden. The second comment is from Diane's next-door neighbor, a woman named Cheryl who I've met exactly once. She writes, "Diane told me her daughter's ashes were scattered in that yard years ago. She's been trying to protect the space. This is heartbreaking." The replies come fast. "Oh my God, that's awful. How could someone plant over a child's resting place? Did they even check before buying the house? This feels so disrespectful." There's a photo attached halfway down the thread, a shot of my backyard taken from the sidewalk. You can see the garden bed, the motion sensor camera mounted on the fence post, the spray of dead tomato plants still lying in the dirt. Someone circled the area in red and added a caption, "This is where her daughter was laid to rest." I close the laptop and sit there, hands pressed flat against the table, trying to keep my breathing even. They don't know the full story. They don't know about the footage, the survey, the fact that I searched for records and found nothing. All they know is what Diane told them, and grief is a hell of a lot more persuasive than property law. I consider posting a response, explaining, showing the survey, the police report, the news search I did. But I can already imagine how it would look. Defensive, cold, legalistic. The guy who bought a house and doesn't care about the woman next door who lost her child. I don't post anything. The next morning I see Mrs. Patel in her front yard and wave. She looks at me for a second, then turns and walks back inside without acknowledging me. That evening I get a knock on the door. It's the same officer from before. He's still polite, still calm, but there's something different in his posture, like he's here out of obligation, not concern. "Just wanted to follow up," he says. "Make sure there haven't been any further incidents." "No, nothing." He nods, glancing past me toward the backyard. "Good, that's good. Has she said anything else?" "Not to us, but I'll be honest with you. This isn't the kind of situation we usually get involved in unless there's ongoing damage or a direct threat. If it stays quiet, it stays quiet. So if she comes back into my yard, then you call us. But right now there's no crime being committed." He hands me his card, even though I already have his number, and tells me to reach out if anything changes. Then he leaves. I stand in the doorway for a long time after he's gone, feeling the weight of what he didn't say. You're on your own. That night, I can't sleep. The motion light outside my bedroom window keeps flicking on, triggered by something I can't see. Maybe a cat, maybe the wind, maybe nothing. Each time it happens, I sit up and look out, half expecting to see Diane standing in the middle of my yard with that same tight smile. But there's no one. Around 2 in the morning, I give up and go downstairs. I make tea I don't drink and sit at the kitchen table, staring at the survey I left out. The boundary line is clear. The garden is mine. None of this should be happening. I think about Diane's daughter, 7 years old, a house fire, 20 years ago. I think about what it would feel like to lose a child and spend 2 decades believing you knew where they were, only to have someone move in and start digging. But I also think about the fact that there's no record, no proof, no burial site, just a story she's been telling herself for so long that it's become real. The next morning, I find my garden gloves missing. I left them on the porch the night before, draped over the railing to dry after I'd rinsed them off. Now they're gone. I check the yard, the driveway, even the trash bins. Nothing. Then I see it. Sitting on the top step of the porch, right where the gloves had been, is a single white rose, freshly cut. The stem is clean, the petals still tight. It's been placed carefully, deliberately. deliberately, like an offering. I pick it up and turn it over in my hands. There's no note, no explanation. I look toward Diane's house. The curtains in her front window shift slightly, then go still. I don't know if this is an apology or a warning. Maybe it's both. Maybe she doesn't know either. I take the rose inside and set it on the counter. Then I lock the door and sit down, trying to figure out what to do next. The Facebook thread is still going. Someone's posted a photo of a white rose with the caption, "In memory of those we've lost." 3 people have reacted with hearts. Cheryl has commented again, "Diane is one of the strongest people I know. Sending love." I close the laptop again. And I'm the person who moved into the wrong house and didn't care enough to ask questions. It doesn't matter that none of it's true. It only matters that people believe it. I think about the officer's words. There's no crime being committed. He's right. There's no crime. Just a woman who's been haunted for 20 years and a neighborhood that's decided whose story matters more. I sit there until the sun comes up, the white rose still on the counter, and wonder how long I can keep living in a house that no longer feels like mine. I spend the morning printing, the property survey, blown up to poster size at the copy shop downtown, the police report, redacted but clear, a QR code linked to a private folder with the camera footage, time-stamped and unedited. I carry everything outside and tack it to the fence facing the sidewalk, right where the garden bed used to be. I use zip ties so it can't be pulled down easily. The survey map is laminated, the edges reinforced. Below it, I add a single line in bold print. Public record, verified boundary line, no burial site on property. It feels clinical, cold, but I'm past caring how it looks. Mrs. Patel walks by an hour later with her dog. She stops, reads the whole thing, then keeps walking without looking at me. A teenager on a bike slows down, pulls out his phone, scans the QR code. He watches for maybe 10 seconds, then rides off. By evening, I've seen at least 8 people stop and look. None of them knock on my door. None of them wave. The next morning, someone's written "heartless" across the bottom of the survey in red marker. I wipe it off and reinforce the laminate with packing tape. That afternoon, Cheryl posts in the Facebook group again. This time, it's a photo of my fence display with the caption, "This is what grief looks like when someone refuses to listen." The comments come fast. He's really doubling down on this? Imagine being so obsessed with being right that you can't show basic human decency. Diane deserves so much better. One person writes, "I scanned the code. The footage just shows her walking around at night. That's not proof of anything except that she's mourning." I read that one twice trying to understand the logic. She poisoned my plants. She trespassed. She lied about the property line. But because she's grieving, none of it counts. I close the laptop and don't open it again for 2 days. They stay for over an hour. At one point, Diane stands and gestures toward my yard, her hand sweeping across the space where the garden used to be. The others nod, faces somber. Someone reaches over and squeezes her hand. It happens again the next night. Different people this time, but the same setup. Candles, quiet voices, Diane at the center. She's not crying. She's composed, almost serene, like she's holding court. I'm not just the bad neighbor anymore. I'm the antagonist in a tragedy that never happened. That weekend, my mail doesn't come. I check the box twice, then call the post office. They tell me there's been a hold placed on my address due to safety concerns. I ask what that means. They say a complaint was filed claiming I'd been harassing the carrier. I hang up and sit on the porch, staring at the empty mailbox. 2 days later, I find my trash can overturned in the driveway. The lid is off, the bag split open, garbage scattered across the pavement. I clean it up and notice footprints in the dirt near the fence. Small, narrow, leading back toward Diane's driveway. I take a photo. I don't send it to anyone, I just save it. The officer calls me that afternoon. Not the same one from before. A different voice. Older, less patient. "We've had complaints from both sides," he says. "I'm calling to ask you to de-escalate. I haven't done anything. You put up a display on your fence. That's escalation. It's my property. It's public record. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying it's not helping. And her hosting vigils on her porch every night? That's not escalation? She's grieving, sir. People are allowed to grieve." I don't respond. There's nothing to say that won't make it worse. "Look," he says, "I'm asking both of you to step back. No more signs, no more confrontations. If something happens, you call us. But right now, you're both making this bigger than it needs to be." He hangs up before I can argue. I take the display down that evening. Not because I think I'm wrong, but because I'm tired. Tired of being watched. Tired of defending myself. Tired of living in a house that feels like a battlefield. But it doesn't stop. On Tuesday morning, a sedan pulls up in front of my house. A woman gets out with a camera and a microphone, followed by a guy with a shoulder-mounted rig. She knocks on my door. I don't answer. She knocks again. "Hi, I'm with Channel 7 News. We're doing a story on a local dispute involving a memorial site. I'd love to get your side." I stay inside, curtains drawn, and wait until they leave. 20 minutes later, they're on Diane's porch. I watch through the window as she talks to them, hands folded in her lap, face calm and composed. The camera stays on her the whole time. She gestures toward my yard once, briefly, and the cameraman pans over. They're there for half an hour. That night, I see myself on the 6 o'clock news. Not my face, just my house, my fence, my driveway. The Chiron at the bottom reads, "Neighborhood dispute over sacred ground." The reporter's voice is smooth, practiced. Diane Calloway says this quiet suburban yard holds the memory of her daughter, who died in a house fire 20 years ago. But the current homeowner disputes her claim, citing property records and surveillance footage. They show a photo of Diane holding an old picture of a little girl with dark hair and a gap-toothed soothed smile. The reporter continues. For Diane, this isn't about property lines. It's about a mother's right to honor her child. Then, they cut to a neighbor, Cheryl, standing in front of her house. Diane is one of the kindest people I know. She's not trying to cause trouble. She just wants peace. The segment ends with a wide shot of my house, the garden bed visible in the background, and the reporter's closing line. A grieving mother, denied closure, a homeowner standing his ground, and a neighborhood caught in between. They don't say my name, they don't show my face, but everyone knows which house it is. I turn off the TV and sit in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of cars passing on the main road. My phone buzzes. A text from a coworker I haven't spoken to in months. Saw you on the news. You okay? I don't reply. Another text. A former classmate. Dude, what's going on? I turn the phone off. The next morning, there's a note taped to my front door. Handwritten, unsigned. It says, "You should be ashamed." I crumple it up and throw it in the trash. Then I go inside, lock the door, and try to figure out how to live in a world where the truth doesn't matter anymore. I call the surveying company on a Thursday morning, the one that did the property line verification. I ask if they do ground-penetrating radar. They don't, but they give me a name. The woman who answers at Geoscan Solutions sounds surprised when I explain what I need. You're looking for human remains? I'm looking for proof that there aren't any. She's quiet for a second. That's not usually how this works. Can you do it or not? We can. It's not cheap. I don't care. She quotes me a price that makes my stomach drop, but I give her my credit card number anyway. She says they can come out Monday morning. I hang up and stare at the ceiling, trying to convince myself this will fix it. That data will cut through emotion. That proof will matter. I don't believe it, but I'm out of options. Monday comes. 2 technicians arrive in a white van with the company logo on the side. One of them is older, balding, with the kind of steady competence that comes from doing the same job for 20 years. The other is younger, maybe mid-20s, carrying a tablet and a handheld unit that looks like a lawnmower crossed with a metal detector. I meet them in the driveway. Thanks for coming. The older one nods. We'll start with a grid pattern, cover the whole yard, should take a couple hours. Whatever you need. They unload the equipment and get to work. The younger guy pushes the scanner slowly across the grass, eyes on the tablet. The older one follows, marking spots with small flags whenever the readout changes. I stay on the porch and try not to look at any of them. The technicians work in silence, methodical and unhurried. They cover the garden bed first, then the area around it, then the rest of the yard in neat rows. At one point, the younger one kneels and adjusts something on the scanner. The older one makes a note on his clipboard. I can't tell if that's good or bad. By noon, they've finished. The older technician walks over, wiping his hands on his pants. We're done. I'll have the full report by tomorrow, but I can give you the short version now if you want. Please. He glances at his clipboard. No subsurface anomalies consistent with organic remains. No soil disturbance older than your foundation, which looks like it was poured about 15 years ago. A few spots with higher moisture retention near the fence line, probably from drainage, but nothing that would indicate a burial site. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. You're sure? As sure as we can be without excavation. If something was buried here, we'd see it. Ground-penetrating radar picks up density changes, voids, decomposition markers. There's nothing like that in your yard. And the report will say that? In technical terms, yeah. I'll email it to you tomorrow morning. Thank you. He nods and heads back to the van. They pack up and leave, and I'm alone again with the empty yard and the weight of what comes next. The report arrives in my inbox at 8:47 a.m. the next day. It's 12 pages long, full of charts and density maps and language I barely understand. But the summary is clear. I print 2 copies. One for me, one for Diane. I walk across the street just after 9, the report in a manila folder, my hands steady even though my chest feels tight. I knock on her door and wait. She opens it slowly, her face wary. She's wearing a cardigan even though it's warm outside, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She looks smaller than I remember. I have something for you, I say. She doesn't invite me in, just stands there, one hand on the doorframe. I hold out the folder. I hired a ground-penetrating radar team. They scanned the entire yard. This is the report. She takes it, her fingers brushing the edge of the folder like it might burn her. She opens it and reads the first page. Her lips move slightly, forming the words without sound. Then she stops, her hands start to shake. There's nothing there, I say quietly. No remains, no disturbance, nothing. She looks up at me, her eyes glassy. I don't understand. The fire was 20 years ago. You said you thought she was buried in this area, but there's no evidence of that. Not in my yard. She reads the next page, then the next, her breathing shallow. I was so sure. I know. I remember them telling me. She stops, her voice catching. Or maybe I just thought they did. Maybe I filled in the blanks because I needed somewhere to go, somewhere to feel close to her. I don't say anything. There's nothing to say that won't make it worse. She closes the folder and holds it against her chest, staring past me at the street. It's been so long. I don't even know if I remember it right anymore. The fire, the hospital, the people who came after. It all blurs together. I'm sorry, I say, and I mean it. She looks at me, really looks at me, for the first time since this started. You didn't deserve this, any of it. Neither did you. She shakes her head. I poisoned your plants. I lied to the neighbors. I made your life hell because I was too scared to admit I might be wrong. You were grieving. That's not an excuse. We stand there in the doorway, the morning sun slanting across her porch, and for a moment, the war between us just stops. No anger, no defensiveness, just exhaustion. Can I ask you something? She says. Yeah, if you'd found something, if the scan had shown remains, what would you have done? I think about it. I would have called the police, let them handle it, made sure she was treated with respect. She nods slowly, her eyes filling. Thank you for that. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. She steps back, still holding the folder, and starts to close the the door. Then she stops. Would you sit with me for a minute? I don't want to be alone right now. I hesitate, then I nod. Okay. She opens the door wider and I follow her inside. Her living room is small and neat, the kind of space that's been frozen in time. Floral wallpaper, a couch with lace doilies on the armrests, a bookshelf filled with porcelain figurines. There's a photo on the mantel, a little girl with dark hair and a gap-toothed smile, the same one from the news segment. Diane sits on the couch and gestures for me to take the chair across from her. I sit. She sets the folder on the coffee table and folds her hands in her lap. Her name was Annie. She was 7. I'm sorry. The fire started in the middle of the night. Electrical, they said. By the time we got out, half the house was gone. She didn't make it. I don't know what to say, so I just listen. They told me her body was recovered, but there wasn't much left. I couldn't afford a proper burial, so they cremated her. I thought, her voice cracks. I thought they scattered the ashes near where the house used to be, but I never confirmed it. I just assumed. And you've been coming back here ever since? Not here exactly, just the neighborhood. I moved a few streets over after the fire. I'd walk by sometimes trying to feel close to her. And then you moved in, and you started planting things, and I thought you were disturbing her resting place. But she was never here. No. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. She wasn't. We sit in silence. Outside, a car passes. A dog barks in the distance. I don't know how to let go, she says finally. I've been holding on for so long, I don't know what's left if I stop. You don't have to let go. You just have to stop hurting yourself. She looks at me, her face raw and open. I don't know how to do that. Maybe start by finding out where she really is. Get the records. Talk to someone who was there. She nods slowly. Maybe. Wait. She reaches for a tissue on the side table, dabs at her eyes. Thank you for not giving up on the truth, even when it would have been easier. You're welcome. I leave her there, sitting on the couch with the folder on the table, and walk back across the street. The yard is still empty, the soil dark and lifeless, but the weight on my chest is a little lighter. That evening, the cicadas start up, their hum filling the air. I sit on the porch and listen, and for the first time in weeks, the silence doesn't feel like a threat. I think about knocking again, but I don't. She needs space, or maybe I do. On Thursday afternoon, I'm pulling weeds near the fence line when I hear her door open. I glance up. She's standing on her porch, one hand on the railing, the other holding her phone. Can I talk to you? She calls. I straighten, brushing dirt off my hands. Yeah. She walks down her steps and crosses the street slowly, like she's not sure her legs will hold. When she reaches the edge of my driveway, she stops. I called the officer, she says. The one who came out before. I wait. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. She looks down at her phone, then back at me. He said he'd close the case. No charges. He said it was a misunderstanding. That's good. She nods, but she doesn't look relieved. Just tired. I also called the crematorium, the one that handled Annie's remains. I thought maybe they'd have records. Did they? They did. But they don't scatter ashes. They release them to family or keep them on file if no one claims them. She pauses, her voice thinning. I never picked them up. I feel something cold settle in my chest. What? I couldn't afford the burial. They offered to keep her ashes until I could, but I never went back. I told myself I would, but I didn't. And then so much time passed, I convinced myself they must have done something with them. Scattered them, donated them, I don't know. I made up a story because I couldn't face the truth. Which was? That I abandoned her. Her voice cracks. That I left her sitting in a box in some storage room because I was too broken to go back. I don't know what to say. There's no comfort big enough for that. They still have her, she says. After 20 years, they still have her. They said I can come pick her up anytime. Are you going to? She nods, wiping at her eyes with the heel of her hand. Tomorrow. I made an appointment. Do you want company? She looks at me, startled. You don't have to do that. I know. She's quiet for a long moment. Then she nods again, slower this time. Okay, thank you. The next morning, I drive her. She gives me the address and sits in the passenger seat with her purse on her lap, staring out the window. We don't talk much. The radio fills the silence with something soft and forgettable. The crematorium is a low brick building on the edge of town, tucked between a storage facility and a landscaping company. The sign out front is simple, professional. Inside, it smells like air freshener and old carpet. A woman at the front desk greets us with the kind of practiced sympathy that comes from years of this work. Diane gives her name. The woman checks her computer, nods, and disappears into a back room. We sit in the waiting area. Diane's hands are shaking. I don't try to stop them. The woman returns a few minutes later with a small wooden box, dark-stained and simple. She sets it on the counter gently. I'm very sorry for your loss. Diane stands and walks over. She stares at the box like she's not sure it's real. Then she picks it up, cradling it against her chest, and starts to cry. After a minute, Diane turns and walks back toward me, still holding the box. Let's go. We leave. The drive back is quieter than the drive there. She doesn't cry, doesn't speak, just holds the box and looks out the window. When we pull into the neighborhood, she asks me to stop at my house instead of hers. Can I see the yard? She says. Of course. We get out and walk around to the back. The garden bed is still empty, the soil dark and loose from where I turned it over last week. The rest of the yard is green but plain. No flowers, no decoration, just grass and fence line. She stands at the edge of the garden bed and looks down at the dirt. This is where I thought she was. I was so sure. For years, I was so sure. She kneels slowly, setting the box on the ground beside her. I thought if I kept this space empty, if I kept people from planting here, I'd be protecting her. But I was just protecting the lie I told myself. I crouch down next to her. You were doing the best you could. No, I wasn't. I was hiding. She touches the soil with her fingertips, letting it sift through. I couldn't face the fact that I'd left her behind. So I invented a story where she was already here, already at rest, and all I had to do was guard the space. But she was never here. She's been in a box on a shelf this whole time. You didn't know. I don't argue. She's not wrong. She picks up the box again and holds it in her lap. I think think I want to bury her, properly, somewhere I can visit. That sounds right, but not here, not in your yard. This was never hers. Where then? She thinks for a moment. There's a cemetery on the west side of town. They have a section for children. I looked it up last night. I think she'd like it there. I think so too. She looks at me, her face raw but steady. Will you help me? However you need. It takes 2 weeks to arrange everything. The cemetery plot, the small marker, the service. Diane doesn't want anything big. Just her, me, and the chaplain the cemetery provides. We meet on a Saturday morning under a sky so blue it almost hurts. The cemetery is quiet, shaded by old oaks. The graves neat and orderly. The section for children is near the back, marked by a statue of an angel with its hands folded. The chaplain is an older man with kind eyes and a voice like gravel smoothed by water. He says a few words about loss and memory and the long road of grief. Diane stands beside the small hole they've dug, holding the box, and when he finishes, she kneels and sets it inside. She stays there for a long time, one hand on the edge of the grave, whispering something I can't hear. Then she stands, wipes her eyes, and nods to the groundskeeper. He fills the hole. We watch in silence. When it's done, Diane places a small bouquet of white roses on the fresh dirt. I'm sorry I took so long, she says quietly, but you're home now. I don't say anything. There's nothing to say. Word spreads through the neighborhood the way it always does, but this time the tone is different. People stop by Diane's house with casseroles and cards. A few apologize for believing the worst. One woman brings flowers. I stay out of it mostly. This is Diane's moment, not mine. But one evening, as I'm watering the empty garden bed, she walks over. I wanted to thank you, she says, for everything. You don't need to. I do. You could have pressed charges. You could have made this so much harder, but you didn't. You were hurting. I'm not going to punish someone for that. She's quiet for a moment. I've been seeing the counselor you recommended, the one who specializes in grief. How's that going? Hard, but good, I think. She says I've been stuck in what she calls ambiguous loss, where you can't move forward because you don't have closure. But now I do, and it's terrifying. Why terrifying? Because I don't know who I am without the grief. It's been the only thing holding me together for so long. I set the hose down. You'll figure it out. I hope so. She looks at the empty garden bed. Are you going to plant again? I don't know. Maybe. If you do, can I help? I blink. You want to help? I think it would be good for me to make something grow instead of tearing it down. I consider it. Okay, yeah, I'd like that. She smiles. Small, tentative, but real. Thank you. A few days later, we go to the garden center together. She picks out white roses, the same kind she left at Annie's grave. I choose tomatoes, basil, and a few perennials that can survive my sporadic attention. We spend the afternoon planting along the property line, right where the survey showed the boundary. She works slowly, carefully, pressing each root into the soil like it matters. I used to garden with her, she says at one point. Annie. She loved digging in the dirt. She'd get it everywhere, under her nails, in her hair. I'd have to hose her down before she could come inside. She sounds like she was a good kid. She was. Diane tamps down the soil around a rose bush. I think she would have liked this. We finish as the sun starts to set. The new plant's small but alive. Diane stands and brushes off her knees, looking at the row we've made. It's not much, she says. It's a start. She nods. Then she looks at me. I'm sorry for all of it. I know I've said it before, but I need you to know I mean it. I know you do, and I'm going to keep saying it until I believe I deserve your forgiveness. You already have it. She blinks, her eyes filling again. Thank you. We stand there as the light fades, the smell of fresh soil rising around us. Somewhere down the street, a dog barks. A car door slams. Life continuing, ordinary and relentless. Diane picks up her tools and heads back to her house. I stay a little longer, looking at the small patch of green we've made together. It's not redemption, it's not closure, but it's something. And for now, that's enough. 2 months pass. The roses bloom. I'm out front trimming the hedge when Diane walks over holding a small envelope. She hands it to me without a word. Inside is a card with a watercolor garden on the front. The message is handwritten, shaky but deliberate. Thank you for giving me my daughter back and for not giving up on me. I look up. She's already halfway back to her porch. Diane? She stops, turns. You did the hard part, I say. She nods just once and goes inside. That evening, I water the roses. They're thriving now, white petals thick and bright against the dark mulch. Diane's porch light is on. She's sitting in her chair with a book, something I haven't seen her do before. She glances up, catches me looking, and lifts her hand in a small wave. I wave back. The garden doesn't fix anything. It doesn't erase what happened or undo the years she spent poisoning my plants, but it gives us something to tend instead of destroy. I've learned that cruelty isn't always born from malice. Sometimes it's just grief with nowhere else to go, wearing itself down against the wrong target. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it finds its way back to something softer.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop your favorite part in the comments. See you in the next one.